What's going on, everyone? This is the Fantasy First Rounders. Welcome to our My Guys episode. See you in just a second. And you know we've got the second intro from Miles FF Peacock, one of the hottest designers in the game. Welcome in, everybody. We are the Fantasy First Rounders. I'm your host at Aggie Kappa Sig, Chris Pinto. Welcome in tonight to our My Guys episode. This is a favorite of ours. This will be our fourth My Guys episode, or third or fourth My Guys episode. Super fun, guys. It's been a pretty wild week. Bortles Combat lands in Green Bay. Don't know what's going on in there. Billy made some good points pre-show about what could happen with Aaron Rodgers. Before we get into all that, Billy, Ryan, Tom, how are y'all doing tonight, guys?
Doing well, man.
Awesome.
Can't complain. We got gas up here at least.
Nice.
That's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I filled up today.
Well, guys, we got a lot to talk about. We got 20 different essentially value picks for your redraft leagues coming up. But before we get into that, speaking of redraft leagues, hit them with that second annual St. Jude Bowl, guys.
Tell them, Ryan.
Yep. All right. Hell yeah. St. Jude Bowl, guys. We are putting everything in process to start getting ready to take the donations for St. Jude and the entry fees. And then honestly, by next week, I'm really hopeful that we got the news of where you can sign up, what we're going to be doing as far. I know many of us have signed up already, but to get the payments in and get leagues starting assigned, we're going to be doing that shortly. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, ditto, man. We got some really fun names. Some of your fantasy favorites over the years for the division names, some really fun ones. Join us for the main event, the Mega League, the $1,000 grand prize from last year. Hoping to extend that out to something a little bit bigger this year. So come join us for that. And Ryan's putting together a whole lot of other things for this to be a well-rounded event for every fantasy experience you can hope for.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the theme of the divisions is first rounders for fantasy first rounders. So there's going to be a lot of first rounders as all the division names.
Well, guys, we're going to go into the My Guys portion. Super fun. What we're going to do is we're going to go outside the top 20 and tight ends, outside the top 24 for running backs and wide receivers. That way, essentially, we're not talking about all the popular picks, right? We're going to give you these guys that are outside that first, second round in your redraft leagues where you can get value if you take them at their ADP. First, we're going to start with quarterbacks. Superflex is the hot thing right now. Tight end premium as well. So quarterbacks in Superflex, we always say don't be quarterback poor. And in that instance, I'm going to start with Tua Tagovailoa, who is not weapons poor. And that's what I'm going to talk about when I'm talking about one of my guys is Tua. Out of Alabama, now a Dolphin. Tua didn't start last season, but he hit the field and he was very efficient. He didn't complete a lot of down the field passes. And he's always been knocked on that he can't throw the deep ball if you watch film on him last year, right? Well, you're not wrong because he was pressured 41.4% of the time. He only had a clean pocket 37.2% of the time. His ADOT was 7.5, and his air yards per attempt were his career low. I'm talking high school, college, NFL, 6.7 air yards per attempt. Guys, don't let this fool you. Don't let the film fool you. Tua is a baller. Go back and watch his college film when he was out there with 4 wides. They're running the rock, paper, scissors for the home run ball. He loves to throw the ball downfield, and he can do it because in college, he actually led the NCAA in 13.1 air yards per attempt, which correlated into his NFL raw QBR rating of a 90.6. Also, in the college database records, his 11.2 yards per play, which was first in the NCAA when he came out over the past 3 years prior to him coming out as well. Chan Gailey is now his offensive play caller, guys. Chan Gailey loves 4 wide receiver sets. Chan Gailey has ran, prior to last season, over 1,100 4 wide receiver sets. To put that in perspective, in 1 year, in 10 seasons, the rest of the NFL has ran 7,300 4 wide receiver sets. So Chan Gailey loves to do this. And what did Chan Gailey do? He went out and got Will Fuller. He went out and got his quarterback's homeboy from Alabama. You got Preston Williams. You have Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki as well. Tua Tagovailoa is the future of this team. They built around him. They've given him all the weapons that he needs to be successful. Speaking about efficiency earlier that I touched on, Tua was not very efficient when it came to his weapons last year. His supporting cast efficiency was 26th in the league at negative 7.17. The projection rate for last year was 23rd, but despite all of that, Tua's accuracy was number 2 in the league at a positive 7.9. My projections for Tua are pretty good. I'm not going to go into too much to him because we'll go into those for rankings, but I've got him at over 4,100 yards passing, 21 touchdowns through the air, a couple on the ground, giving him around 300 points, putting him as my quarterback 13. ECR has Tua Tagovailoa at ECR 21. I got him at 13. Where you're taking him at his ADP, he should be a steal for you, and I'm planting my flag with Tua Tagovailoa as one of my guys. What do y'all think about that?
Chris, you already know what I think. Personally, I'm not big on Tua, right? And it's nothing against Tua. The question for me is, when's the real last time you've seen a successful quarterback out of Alabama? And the answer to that is it's been since the 60s, I believe. Ken Stabler, Joe Namath, those guys back, right? They're both there in the 60s. So, beyond that, we've seen, I think the next best guy is probably A.J. McCarron, who was, he's been a career backup. Again, nothing against A.J. McCarron. I'm not trying to bash him. He's a great college quarterback. I think the issue is that in Alabama, you have so many stars around you as compared to the teams you're facing, that it lifts your play level as a quarterback. That's my fear with Tua. That's my fear with Mac Jones too. Similar type of situation. I'm scared to get a lot of shares of him because I don't really know what he's capable of if he has guys that are kind of more average within the league around him. Beyond that, looking at Tua last year, nothing he did excited me really. He didn't play badly, but nothing was over the top. He didn't show me that he does any one thing better than another quarterback. So other than being left-handed, even though he's right-handed, it doesn't do it for me.
Scott, I don't agree that Hurts is better than Tua. I actually think I like Tua better. I wasn't a big Tua guy, and Pinto and I have gone back and forth a little bit as we started our projections. And as I look, Waddle was my wide receiver 1 coming into this rookie class. Like, I really do love Waddle. I love Devontae Parker. I like Preston Williams, and nobody loves Mike Gesicki more than me. So I'm starting to get worked up over all these weapons, and I think that this could be a good year for Tua, and I wasn't thinking that in the beginning. So I'm buying in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm starting to as well. Tua, I kind of ignored. I just wasn't that excited about him. The hip injury really scared me away from really investing heavily in him. I actually don't have him on any of my dynasty rosters, but that might be changing here pretty soon. Like you said, Ryan, Jalen Waddle, we all love this guy. An incredible wide receiver talent coming in. He's a wide receiver 1 on most teams in the NFL, but this team just happens to have Devontae Parker, brought in Will Fuller. Preston Williams is a big physical freak. And there's a whole bunch of other guys like, Jakeem Grant hanging around that are pretty talented guys when they've got an opportunity. Lynn Bowden as well. So this is a loaded offense. Myles Gaskin, really good pass-catching running back out of the backfield for these guys as well to help Tua out. Mike Gesicki. What is a young struggling quarterback's best friend? A tight end over the middle. I mean, every piece is there. A good defense to help eliminate the impact of some of his mistakes. I feel like that kind of helps with the confidence staying up there for a young guy that's developing. But I'm getting to be more and more into Tua. I think he could have a really good year because so much talent around him. It should just work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Joshua, Scott, Liz, thank y'all for being in the chat. Aiden as well. Tua time, baby. That's the only one I want to look at right there. Tua time, baby. But Tom, why don't you take us over to your boy?
I mean, you guys know my boy, the Glock, up in Denver, right? So here's the thing with Drew Lock. He's on his, was it 4th or 5th offensive coordinator in one more year. So if it's 5, it's in 6 years, 4 and 5 years. I forget off the top of my head here, but through all that change, he has been pretty successful with every single one of them. I think that the offense is going to look a lot better this year in Denver than last year. Tua going to look like Murray did last year.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I can't get on board with that. But Denver's offense, I think, is going to look much better than it did last year. Early last year, we saw a lot of their receiving core go down. They had a lot of injuries on that team, including to Drew Lock. So, going into this year, you look at it, obviously you have Cortland Sutton's back, Jerry Jeudy, who I think we're talking about a bit later, KJ Hamler, good deep threat. Tim Patrick came into his own as a number 3 last year. He's your number 3, number 4 at this point. And then at tight end, you have Noah Fant, who I think you guys have kind of looked at him and seen the value he has, maybe not as a top tight end, but I think he's a pretty effective one, especially with Albert Okwuegbunam behind him. And then the backfield, you have Melvin Gordon there still, and then you brought in Javonte Williams, who I know I just sent you guys that video of him today. I mean, the clips of him at UNC, he's a monster. So you have all the weapons you could ever need around your quarterback here. The offensive line is solid. It's not great, not bad. It's at least average. It'll get the job done. And Drew Lock, I think, if he's able to get on a roll, able to build his confidence a bit, is able to just crush it. He will absolutely light teams up with the offense around him. And the best news is, if you do take a flyer on Drew Lock, it's probably going to be very late in the draft. I've seen him usually about quarterback 24. And guess what? If you really want to and have a little bit of safety net, you can probably go back and get Teddy Bridgewater a round or 2 later, and you're going to have the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, 98% guarantee there, for a couple of late round picks. So
as a guy who drafted Aaron Rodgers in the 5th.
I'm worried about Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I'm worried about Aaron Rodgers. That's what I was going to say. I actually think this could be a big year for Locke. Y'all know I don't like Teddy Bridgewater. Locke didn't get a fair shake last year, Sutton being out. I really am a big Sutton guy. Jeudy year 2. That should help Jeudy too, having Sutton. I'm also a fan of Fant. The thing is, again, I'm looking at Locke in a little bit of the way I'm looking at Rodgers or I'm looking at Watson. I'm a little nervous that something could happen, and through no fault of his own, he may not be the quarterback week 1. Rodgers, we were talking just before the show. I guess I'll let, if Billy wants to talk more about that. That's my only concern with Locke. I think if he will beat Bridgewater, and if Rodgers doesn't wind up there, he's going to be a steal where you're getting him.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I really feel like Denver is the most likely place for Aaron Rodgers to land, just simply because of the weapons there, what they would be able to send in return without breaking that roster down and taking them out of the situation they're in. That is really a pretty damn loaded roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they're young as well. I think also Cortland Sutton was really underrated in what he did for that offense. He kind of broke out, and then he was injured before we really got a real good taste of what he could be. However, we've seen this passing game struggle pretty bad in essence since he's been absent and out of this lineup. So I feel like he might be a little better than we think he is. Him coming back, I like Drew Lock better than Teddy Bridgewater. But I feel like Teddy Bridgewater is a vet in the QB room to help this young kid kind of take that next step. And I feel like Teddy's probably a pretty good candidate to help him out with that. I mean, he's a smart player. He doesn't turn the ball over. And he hung out in New Orleans, so he has a PhD in quarterback play. He might be kind of a coach behind the kid to help push him, help him develop a little bit. And with all this talent around him in a division where they're going to be thrown to score points, I like Drew Lock as a late round steal. He's a talented kid. He has everything you want in an NFL quarterback. Just seems like he just needs to take that next step to me.
By the way, guys, Aaron Rodgers isn't tall enough for John Elway to bring him in.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm nervous about it. All right. So I guess that moves to my guy, Daniel Jones. I mean, I've liked Daniel Jones for a long time. The things I want to key on here are he improved in a lot of the things I wanted to see him improve in last year, despite not having Saquon and despite having a garbage offensive line. Went from 18 fumbles to 11. In what reality, he should have had more fumbles that year. How much that line was terrible, and there was no run game. The thing that I didn't realize coming into last year, and that we all kind of got to see when he had that great run where he fell right before the end zone, was his rushing floor. Like, he played in 13 games. He had 423 rushing yards. That was 7th among quarterbacks, ahead of Josh Allen at 8. Like, that's something that I really, even until we were about to do this, didn't realize that number. Like, we think of Josh Allen. Well, actually, in fewer games, Daniel Jones outrushed him. Now, he didn't have Saquon Barkley, so I'm not expecting that again. That being said, we've seen what his rushing floor is, and we know what that means in fantasy. So he's got a legitimate rushing floor on him. He improved his completion percentage, albeit by small percentage. But the other thing is he improved his yards per carry. Like, he had 6.2 as a rookie. That's impressive. He popped that up to 6.5, again, behind a bad offensive line. So what got me this year, less than the things I still liked about him last year, like, he has a lot of the talent I want to see. Again, I thought he was an above-average athlete. Turns out he's a little bit better than that. He's going to get Saquon Barkley back. They didn't add a bunch of big pieces to this line, but what they had last year was a very young line. So we should be looking at a much improved unit this year, and that defense is salty, so they're not going to have to be throwing. He's going to be able to play balanced football, which is going to be beneficial to him, because if he's having to throw too much, he's shown that he can be a bit turnover prone. So to let that come more naturally, he's going to have a better – I mean, this is just – he hasn't been in the league for very long. We forget this is year 3. Quarterbacks need time to develop. We're all expecting Russell Wilson all the time. Daniel Jones is going to be stepping into his own. I'm expecting somewhere around a 65 to 68% completion percentage. I know that's a big window. I haven't finished my projections yet. But adding Kenny Golladay, having a healthy Saquon. I mean, I like Slayton a lot. Evan Ingram stayed healthy for 16 games last year. That's a huge factor that I really don't want to ignore. Everything's in place for Jones. When I look at the division around him, it's right to be taken, especially with that defense. I know Washington's going to be tougher this year, and I know Dallas gets Dak back, but sorry, Tom, I don't even respect Philadelphia this year. So I think that the Giants – I'm going to put a bet on the Giants to win that division, and it's going to be because Daniel Jones takes a huge improvement from year 2 to 3.
Yeah, Daniel Jones, I mean, you said those improvements, that he had from year 1 to year 2, they might have been slight. However, we did not see Daniel Jones healthy at all when we did see him last year. And that's a big thing to me. A young quarterback playing hurt while he's trying to develop. No running game to speak of when you lose Saquon Barkley early in week 2. That's a big part of it too. Now all of a sudden defenses can sit back. And really Darius Slayton, as much as we like him, he's a wide receiver too. He's not the number 1 wide receiver on your team's football team. They got that guy in Kenny Golladay. They got a slot toy in Kadarius Toney out of Florida in the first round. Pretty high. This is a guy they're really confident in. He plays. Sterling Shepard's played well. Evan Ingram, you said. I really like this offense. It's a young group of guys that can all play ball, and they have all the right pieces. Just they might have 4 guys that would be number 2 wide receivers on some squads when healthy, fully ready to go. I just like that supporting cast for a guy like Daniel Jones. And like you said, he has a lot better rushing floor than a lot of us would have given him credit for.
Yeah, it's one of those things like we keep talking about, like the weapons that this kid has, right? You got Saquon Barkley. You got Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, now Kenny Golladay. You exclude Kenny Golladay from that mix, and like you mentioned, the health of this team, that superstar squad has only played a total of, 7 quarters of football together? That's ridiculous. Like, you got to have chemistry, right? Chemistry is huge. I'm hoping that this year, like you said, like OTAs now, they're able to take that leap. Kenny Golladay there to – you can't stack the box against Saquon because, I mean, what do you do now? You got Saquon, you have Evan Ingram, Darius Slayton. I mean, Tony as well now, I mean, someone's got to be offensive rookie of the year. Why not this kid? I mean, he could slide in there. Daniel Jones, man, he's going to be surprised. I'm going to be surprised where you have him around because I'm pretty high on Daniel Jones in my rankings.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that he was actually only 0.06 miles per hour slower than Tyreek Hill for his top speed last year?
That's incredible, right? Like,
Hey,
I saw that.
See that race, though.
Yeah,
God.
faster than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Wow.
close to Tyreek Hill. So pretty impressive there. I will say he has improved year over year. Like when I look at his numbers, obviously last year the touchdowns were way down from 24 down to 11. But good news is his completion percentage went up. His interceptions went down in more games. His interception percentage went down. His yards per attempt stayed the same, which is good considering he had less yardage. I think he was more efficient with the ball, right? He does need to get it into the end zone. I think that adding, extra receiving help for him and them being healthy is big. And like we've said, Saquon is going full Kobe comeback season. And I think that that's going to be the biggest part to this Giants offense is the fact that, like Chris said, they can't stack the box against Saquon because they have so many receiving threats out there. Saquon's going to go off. And Saquon's is here to stay in the NFL. And they picked up his 5th-year option, I believe. So he's ready to go. He's got to earn that next contract still.
Yeah,
Saquon to the big leagues. Next up, Miles Sanders.
There you go.
There you go.
So, guys, my quarterback for 2021 is Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield. He finished 2020 as a quarterback 19, but he was 13 points from being QB 15 in his first year with Kevin Stefanski, and only having OBJ for 6 games. He got injured early in the 7th one, so 7 games technically, but he threw 5 touchdowns in that game that OBJ left against the Bengals. But it hadn't been too exciting before that, and it took until week 13 for the Browns, though, to really kind of get going. But over the fantasy playoffs last season, weeks 13 through 16, Baker was QB 5. Over those 4 games, 1,259 yards and 8 touchdowns, and that includes the game where Austin Hooper was the only receiver on the Browns and had 15 targets. So that's pretty impressive. That's a pretty impressive stretch right when you need it most in the fantasy playoffs. He posted career best in rating and QBR, and that rose almost 20 points. Fewest interceptions of his career, 14 fewer sacks than in 2019. The team put it together late in the year, gave the Chiefs a scare in the postseason after winning a postseason game themselves finally. So Odell Beckham Jr. back. I like Baker to make that jump to the 30-touchdown club. That would put him right on the heels of that QB 12 neighborhood. Another offseason with his coaching staff, the best wide receiver back on the field on the team, best backfield in the whole NFL, and he's a low-end QB1 for me in 2021, no doubt.
Yeah, I thought I was on mute. I was not on mute. Okay. I mean, obviously, I like Baker Mayfield as a quarterback and as a person because OBJ is one of my guys. We'll talk about him later. But, yeah, for all those reasons, I'm in on Baker. I think he's going to be efficient this year, and I think that the tandem that we mentioned in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, they're going to be deadly this year. So that's pretty much all I got on Baker. I love him.
Yeah, Chris, you used my favorite word for quarterbacks there, which is efficiency, right? I think I talk about quite a bit with him. And from his 2nd year into his 3rd year, Baker Mayfield's efficiency improved drastically. Now, not to say that his completion percentage skyrocketed up by about 3%, touchdowns only up by 4, yardage actually went down, but his interceptions went down from 21 to 8. And then his sacks went down from 40 to 26. So he's playing smarter football. He's not trying to do too much. And I think that having that backfield, it's a positive and a negative for him, right? It's a positive in the sense that it takes the weight off of his shoulders, that generally he's not going to have to push the ball downfield the entirety of a game. He's not going to have to throw it 50 times a game in most scenarios, because they can trust that the 2 of those running backs can move the chains. They can get first downs and keep the ball moving, right? But the negative for it is that I do think that does limit his ceiling slightly. And again, this isn't by a massive amount, but generally, I think once you get into that goal line scenario, they're going to be more likely to run it with those guys than pass it from Baker Mayfield. And I don't blame him. But again, I think that just kind of limits that ceiling. I don't think we'll see a 40 touchdown season from Baker. We could see him touch 30, but I think he is the low end QB1 is right where his ceiling is, comfortably.
I honestly think part of it, I mean, this is just a little hunchy, but he was used to being the best player on his team, and on Cleveland, he's just not. And so maybe he was trying to do too much stuff, but he's just not the best player on that team. In reality, the run game, it should be featured with two backs like that. So I think that he's kind of come to accept that a little bit. Like he just turned 26. Again, like a lot of the stuff I was just saying, he's young. He should still legitimately be improving. I like him. He's a gamer. He is my QB2 in lots of leagues. And I would, if I'm going real RB heavy, which I know all of us like to do, I'm okay with having Baker as my QB1 this year. I'm not stressing if that's the case, because then I got some beast running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. So that finishes up the quarterbacks of our My Guys episode here. So I'll kick us off with running backs, guys. Somebody old and kind of we tend to overlook nowadays with the rise in the dynasty popularity. Everybody's old at like 26 now. My running back guy this year in redraft is Melvin Gordon. The consensus is out. He's old, washed up, all that nonsense, right? Despite that illusion, he posted his third best rushing season and second best yards per carry just last year, and is only his second season posting greater than 4 yards per carry. So that's kind of interesting. All those seasons in San Diego, they're a little more touchdown dependent than we tend to realize. But where the drop off with him is in the passing game. He only caught 32 passes for $158 last year, which is much fewer than the 50 receptions for 420 yards he averaged the last 3 years. Thank you, Phillip Rivers. But Melvin Gordon had 65 or more yards rushing in 9 games and was still RB14 in PPR in a year that everyone's acting like he's done. He's no good, washed up. And Philip Lindsay left 150 touches for Javonte Williams, so there's no reason to worry about him not getting the workload. Denver's going to run the ball plenty, especially if Drew Lock's under center to help protect the young guy we talked about a little bit earlier. But this season is also an addition for him to the rest of the NFL. He likely won't be with the team moving forward because of that draft pick, Javonte Williams. But this is a quality running back. He can still play, and you're drafting him in the same neighborhood as David Johnson, Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones, all way more crowded backfields if you wanted to make that point as well.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon too, man. The guy, I loved him in San Diego, Anthony Lynn's homeboy. I mean, he won championships for you. Coming to Denver was optimum for you because it was his place and Philip Lindsay, time shared with them. So they both had pretty decent workloads. Obviously, like you mentioned, Javonte Williams, who we'll talk about here later, hopefully. Melvin Gordon's going to eat. Like we said, Drew Lock's got the weapons. The offensive line is good there in Denver. It's like I think that we're becoming all Denver fans now of the show. It would just be very fitting if Gardner Minshew went there and had a quarterback battle. That would be the deal right there. So on that, I'll give it to Tom.
I'm in.
I'm way in.
Oh, my God. That just makes me so happy.
Guys, I would love that. That would be the quarterback room that's the most entertaining, that's for sure.
No doubt.
As far as Melvin Gordon's concerned, though, so I do like him. I think he is a little touchdown dependent, like you said, Billy. Looking at his stats, he's, like you said, only 1,000 yard season. He's gotten close a couple times, but the biggest factor for him is that he does get the touchdowns. Other than his rookie season, he's had 8 or more every single year. So I think where you're drafting him, it's perfectly fine. Even with Williams, you're going to get that RB2 or at least a very solid flex player out of him. And again, at that draft position, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would say that he's not necessarily a long-term option for me in Dynasty. I think that you'll see Williams eat into that later in the season and into next year. So, but Williams is used to sharing a backfield, so I don't see it being an issue for either guy.
Yeah, for me, it's just a value thing. Like, he's not going away. This guy should not be your RB1, but RB2, RB3 level. Well, even for the way we draft, I don't want him as my RB2 either. But if you're getting if you're after an AJB or a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, and this guy winds up as your RB2, I think you're okay. I think he has a reasonably safe floor. I'm off of him on Dynasty. I want nothing to do with him. But in the redraft, I think you can get some sneaky value here, Billy. I don't think I'm going to have that much exposure to him because he goes a tiny bit higher in the drafts I've been doing so far, because I'm drafting with a lot of guys like you that go RB crazy. Like when we're all drafting together, I have a hard time taking Melvin Gordon as early as he winds up going with us because of the guys we're all in the same daggum drafts together, guys. So it's running backs are flying off the board. So I don't wind up with a lot of Melvin Gordon because of that. But I actually agree. I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to be going like, man, Melvin Gordon kind of saved my, especially if say you had Saquon last year who went down, then you have Melvin Gordon come in. That wasn't a bad situation considering your RB went down. If you can make some moves, you can win. I think Melvin Gordon's an awesome option as like an RB2 flex.
And he's being drafted as that low-end RB3, so real value.
That's what
side. And there's no reason to think that he does any worse than he did last year. Phillip Lindsay had a formidable role in this offense. I mean, he legitimately got the ball from time to time. So, Melvin Gordon, we all think he's old because he played really well in San Diego for quite a while there. So just a guy I really like. But like you said, Ryan, I usually go more running back heavy. And by the time Melvin Gordon's coming off the board, I'm starting to fish for receivers in that range. But in redraft, if I'm picking late in drafts and it kind of comes back and, I'm looking for another running back, maybe some depth, Melvin Gordon is a great guy to plug in a flex. It's going to give you some RB1 and RB2 weeks a lot of the time just based on workload alone.
Real quick, Chris, on the Broncos, think back to last year. We were pretty high on them going into the year, but all those injuries crushed this team.
I think he was one of my guys last year too.
Yeah, that was really bad luck.
It happens. It happens. What's not bad luck though is hopping onto a team with the GOAT winning a Super Bowl, getting a contract to come on back, and then being one of Pinto's my guys on the episode. So Lombardi Lenny, baby, playoff Lenny, the LSU Tiger, go SEC, Super Bowl champ, Tampa Bay Buccaneer, running back one for the team. I don't care if you're a Ronald Jones truther, Joshua Cho in the chat, or not. Lenny is the guy, and we saw it last season when they got to the postseason when they really needed a running back. Yes, Ronald Jones was a little bit banged up, but Leonard Fournette came in and was super, what's the word, Tom? Efficient. 12% juke rating. He had over 100 yards in back-to-back games. He had a 98.1 QBR target rating when Tom Brady was targeting him out of the backfield for passes. He was number 7 in the entire NFL in game script efficiency at 1.78%. The guy was very, very efficient. He was very, very good. ECR has him at 35. So in the 6th, 7th round where you're getting him at, it's low risk, very, very high reward, where I have him at his running back 22, which is pretty crazy, but I'm very, very high on Leonard Fournette. I think he's going to be the starting running back come the season, and they're just going to roll with him. When Leonard Fournette gets the touches, 281, 341, he's had a 1,200-yard season and close to a 1,700-yard season. This is what Tom Brady needs. They got the deadliest trio, arguably, in receivers. So let's get Lenny out there. I think that he is going to light it up.
Tom, before you go, did y'all see Raj saying you think Gordon takes goal line TDs from Javonte?
I think
probably
so.
A little, right? Yeah, probably a little. I think they cap each other just a little bit.
I think Gordon takes him just because Denver knows that they're not going to have him next year and save Javonte a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run him into the ground, if you will. Yeah, and I will say I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing for either of them, though, because I think they'll both still end up in that RB2 to RB3 kind of range. So where you're getting these guys, Williams, you're drafting a little higher, especially if it's a dynasty league because of the long-term value for him. But I think it's worth it in that sense. If I have an RB2 every year, I'll take that. But on Leonard Fournette, I do like Fournette. Don't get me wrong. Last year was kind of a weird year. It was all touchdowns for him, 6 touchdowns and no yards in the regular season. One thing with him, he's not super efficient in the regular season, at least, Chris, with his yards per carry. He has only exceeded 4 yards per carry once in his last year in Jacksonville. He got 4.3. He's gotten close, 3.8, 3.9, but I'd like to see that a little bit higher, but I digress. The other issue I have, and this hasn't stopped me from getting him in some leagues, but that depth chart is a bit packed. You have Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, and Keyshawn Vaughn. They even brought in Giovanni Bernard. I'm not saying anybody there is going to start over him, but I could see them moving different guys in and out of different packages, and it could just take some timeshare from him. So definitely a value pick because you're getting anybody on that roster later. But hey, a good flex play, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I never thought I'd say it, but I'm concerned about Gio. Like, what else can that guy do? And a lot of what I get excited about Fournette on is his pass catching that he developed as he progressed through his career. I mean, I think we all remember when Fournette came out, we were like, oh my God, that guy's undeniable. Like, the talent is undeniable. I just saw a different Ronald Jones last year. I mean, I think they may have too much talent. That being said, Fournette is still the guy I usually target out of this backfield because I just can't get over his talent. I don't think that anybody else is on the same level.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Ronald Jones, I mean, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't enjoy having him be the lead guy. Under 200 carries, almost 1,000 yards, over 5 yards per carry last year, and he had over double the carries that Leonard Fournette had. But I'll also say that the Leonard Fournette that was there at the beginning of the year was not the Leonard Fournette during that playoff run. If you look at him, man, he looks slimmed up, kind of like he did coming out of LSU. He really kind of blew up in Jacksonville, and I'm kind of wondering if motivation and things of that nature aren't coming into play here for a guy that is supremely talented. You know, now it's kind of worth doing it. He's back to being the Leonard Fournette we know and love. But my worry is, like you said, Tom, this is a really, really crowded running back room. However, to Ryan's point, if I'm getting any of the Buccaneers running backs, it's going to be Leonard Fournette because at the end of the day, he is by far the superior talent.
I like to get multiple ones. I like to get a Fournette-Jones combo sometimes because if one of them goes down, I'm all about the other one. I literally – I'll use an early-ish pick, like round 5, 6, 7, to take a Fournette-Jones combo. And then, look, I got a running back. And I may be having to play footsie with myself 5 minutes before kickoff. But the thing is, if one of those backs goes down, you just hopped into an RB1 scenario.
You guys know I did that in one of the leagues we're in, and I even very late in the draft picked up Keyshawn Vaughn as just a why not? He's going to sit on the bench anyway. And
BA said he's going to be the breakout.
Exactly. They're confident in his ability. I'm not going to say much more, but hey, if they believe in him and they want to give him a shot, I'd rather have him on my bench than have him sitting on the waiver wire for somebody else.
Yeah, I'm with you.
True.
Especially in a deep bench.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're all good players, you know?
Absolutely. All right. So that takes us on to, I think this is kind of an interesting one. I feel like this is kind of an odd take. Chase Edmonds for the Cardinals. Obviously, they did just bring in James Conner. You do also have a couple guys behind him, nothing too crazy. Jonathan Ward, Benjamin Eno. So the depth chart not super deep here, and obviously Conner is going to eat into some of the touches that he would get at the running back position. But personally, I'm confident in Edmonds and his ability. Looking at his stats, for the last 3 years, his rookie year was not so hot, 60 rushes for 208 yards. But his second and third years in the league, he went for 303 yards at 5.1 yards per carry and 448 his third year at 4.6 yards per carry. So in the few touches he's getting, he's really making use of it and making the best of it. So, and again, that's as an RB2, RB3 those years. He really wasn't getting the spotlight and getting the attention. So I think looking at the offense they have down there, well, he might not get 200 plus touches in this offense. If he gets 100, 150, he's going to make the best use of it because he's efficient when he runs. And defenses are going to have to look at the passing game down here with Cliff Kingsbury and the air raid. You have a lot of good receivers to cover. You also now just brought in Rondale Moore, who knows how they're going to line him up, whether it's in the slot, whether it's in the backfield. I think it's going to be somebody that Chase Edmonds is almost the forgotten about player. and it could turn into something big for him.
Yeah, I like his efficiency numbers are excellent. He's not as little as he looks either. He's like 210 at 5'9". Like that's
5'9".
a little. Yeah, he's powerful. He's got some power. I don't think Connor makes the season. And when Connor goes down, which will likely be later in the year, that's when you're going to need Edmonds. I like Edmonds. The dude had 53 catches last year on 67 targets. Like he had almost 900. He had 850 yards total offense. And again, he only had 97 rushes, but he had 53 catches. To me, you got, especially in PPR, which is what most of us do, that you can't ignore that he's catching a lot of balls. I like him, Tom. I think that's a good pick. I don't think it's contrarian either. I know a couple people that are like, man, because again, like we kind of like Connor, and like Pinto always says narrative street and everything with Connor, but man, the guy really hasn't stayed healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not sure about Chase Edmonds, go watch his highlights against the Giants the day he got the ball the whole night. 27 carries for $120 and like 3 touchdowns. The dude looked incredible, and we haven't really seen him since when he wasn't in a timeshare with somebody. So James Conner really isn't a threat to me. I feel like Chase Edmonds is just a better football player. Not that James Conner is terrible or anything. I just feel like he's probably in more of a backup role, goal line and short yardage situations, because Edmonds is a bit of a smaller kind of scat back type of guy. But I do think he could do it all and carry the load. And just looking at some of his stuff, if this guy were to get a couple hundred carries, and Ryan, you said it yourself, 53 catches for a guy that really took a backseat to Kenyon Drake, and Kenyon Drake had 33 targets himself, really not even playing in that passing game role. So Kyler Murray will throw it to the running back. If Chase Edmonds is on the field for a significant number of the snaps on this offense, he's going to be a very, very valuable fantasy asset, and I see no reason to think he can't, if he stays healthy, be a top-notch fantasy asset this year.
Yeah, so what I say, Ryan, is not about James Conner staying healthy. The narrative street is Cliff Kingsbury's running back is the running back that I want.
Right.
So
Conner has great narratives.
Right. Yes, that's true. But so last year we saw Chase Edmonds, like y'all mentioned. Chase Edmonds is a dude, right? He can be the number one guy in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, but he's not really the build that Cliff Kingsbury likes. James Conner is. I was so set on Cliff Kingsbury somehow, some way getting Trey Sermon on the team. That would have been awesome, right? But didn't happen. So, it's going to be one of those things kind of like with Fournette and Rojo. I mean, you might have to get both these guys, because whoever is the running back is going to bump themselves, like you said, to a running back one situation. I like Chase Edmonds because he's been on the team and they've given him the green light saying that he is a bell cow back. So we'll see, like you said, Ryan, if Connor even makes it through camp. I mean, that the contract that he got wasn't very big, so cutting him wouldn't be that terrible, but hopefully he stays on the team, and I think it's a coin flip.
Yeah, so moving on to a guy that I was stupid high on until the dumbest pick of the draft happened. James Robinson, man. What a beast in 2020. 1,070 yards on 240 carries. That's a 4.5. He had 17.1 rushes a game. With a garbage offense, most of the year, there was nothing they could do but give the ball to Robinson, and he still maintained those efficiency numbers. I think we all agree Travis Etienne is awesome, but I think that Robinson is so talented that it won't matter. It'll be a little bit like a Chubb Hunt scenario. 49 catches on 60 targets. This guy is so dual. In a lot of ways, him and Etienne are very similar. Even in build, they're similar. Although I would say that I think that Robinson looks more powerful. Like, he really doesn't shy from contact. Not that Etienne is not powerful. And again, we'll see. They really do look similar. But Robinson did this stuff in college. He just did it at Illinois State. Like, when I went back this year to try to see how did everybody miss this guy, I don't know how. Maybe we all got tricked into the small school thing because he was dominating people in how to convince them to go tight end premium. Money, man. Pay him money. He was dominating people in college. He had 79 of 80 tackles last year, which was 5th in the NFL. his juke rate was 27.3, which was 13th in the NFL, and he didn't play a full season. He was 4th in dominator rating in the NFL at running back at 31.8. And the thing about, like, he was in the 90th percentile in the Spark score, the thing that they measure athletes in when they're coming in the combine. He had a 93rd percentile burst at 220 pounds. Like, I can't get over that. His acceleration is electric. I know what I saw last year. I don't know why they got Etienne. I really hate that pick, but I'm still getting J-Rob because I don't think it's going to matter. I think they can use 2 running backs effectively.
Yeah, I agree, Ryan. I feel like he's just too good to not play. I mean, this is a guy that was an undrafted free agent on a team that had some relative talent at the running back position coming into last year, and somehow, they decided they'd rather get rid of Leonard Fournette and let this guy play. I mean, that tells you a little something about the kid. 240 carries. He's a workhorse. He could have handled a bigger load. He played 640 snaps. I find it really hard to believe after all that Etienne just comes in and eats up all the carries, all the targets, and all the snaps. I feel like they play them both, and it's probably in their best interest to do so, to keep them both healthy and have both of these guys as they have a young quarterback and really a young nucleus. And I think Etienne kind of, he complements James Robinson's game as far as the running goes, but maybe it cuts into what he does in the receiving game a little bit. Etienne's going to play, but I don't think that necessarily means it's going to kill J-Rob's value.
I don't think you're wrong either. I don't think it's going to kill J-Rob's value. I mean, I think it's going to kill J-Rob's value just a little bit where we were drafting him prior to this situation.
Yeah, agreed.
So now you might get a value out of him, and I like where you're getting it at, because if you watch, I mean, Urban Meyer produced great tandems in running back situations, right? I mean, Dobbins, Teague, Sermon was there, right? Like he likes to just keep on rolling, like how defensive linemen like to just roll through defensive coaches like to roll the defensive linemen and keep them all healthy, keep their legs young. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen here. Like you mentioned, they have similar builds. Maybe that builds into Urban Meyer's platform on, I'm just going to run the dang ball because I got a rookie quarterback, right? So I'm going to run the ball 40 times, and maybe that's what happens with Etienne. Like he says, he's a third down running back. Well, you don't spend first round draft capital on a third down running back unless he's your second down guy, gets the third down, you go with the first down, and then he stays out there, right? James Robinson comes out in relief, gets the goal line work. Obviously, he can catch the ball. I think it's a great pick. I like both these guys, Etienne and Robinson.
Yeah, I do definitely like both of them. I will say I actually went back, and I was curious, like you were, Ryan, kind of how did people miss him? Tebow. So, guys, really quick on Tim Tebow, he has one career receiving target. It was on the Jets. It hit him in the face. He did not catch it.
Who threw the ball?
I think it was Sanchez.
Oh, don't even start with that. The world's worst.
But hey, pass was right where it needed to be. He was square in the face and nothing.
Yeah, he can probably
Just
block,
saying.
man. He can probably already block.
Hey, two Chiefs got hit in the face with touchdown passes in the Super Bowl.
There you go. But back to James Robinson. I looked back at some of his draft kind of profiles that people had for him to see what was it that people weren't seeing in him that obviously once he hit the field, he showed he can do it. So some of the questions, obviously speed. I mean, the guy ran a 4.64. It's not like he's that big, 5'9", 219. 4.64 is pretty slow. So concerns about breakaway speed, playing in college at that level. He was running through massive holes. They had a good offensive line when he was in college and poor defenses. So can he be quick enough to hit gaps? He had over 600 touches in his last 2 years at college, and just limited athleticism. Obviously, last year he was able to overcome all of those things. His stats were incredible. He proved that he's a good running back, averaging 4.5 yards a carry, and obviously receiving the ball, well too. And on a crap team with a great quarterback, albeit they wouldn't play him.
Yeah.
I definitely do think that it's going to be a big impact to James Robinson with bringing in Etienne. I'd be shocked if Robinson ends up getting half of the touches this year. I'd say he probably ends up with less than 50% by the end of the year if you look at the total numbers.
I mean, I just think he's too talented. I don't know how. I think you could play them around at slot. I think you could run them both at the same time. I don't see how he's not on the field at least 50% of the time, even in tandem. Like I can't get over his talent.
I could see them doing a 2 running back, kind of try and get interesting with Tebow out there, 2 running backs, some kind of weird formations. It makes sense.
Right, so that runs us to running backs, moving to wide receivers, and I'm actually going on the same team for some semi-similar reasons. DJ Chark, boy, he exploded in 2019. I was looking at him as a top 10 receiver coming into 2020 because I thought Minshew'd be throwing the ball to him all year. That didn't happen, as we all know. Trevor Lawrence is a huge upgrade at quarterback for him. Chark's improvement from year one to year 2 got stalled in year 3, and in some ways even reversed. But again, a lot of that, maybe all of that, has to do with quarterback play and just the offense really not being very good outside James Robinson. I mean, Chark had a terrible year. But I want to, one quick reminder, this guy ran a 4.3 440 at 6'4". This is a beast and a difficult guy to deal with. Finished, even despite missing time, he only played in 13 games. He finished 5th in the NFL in deep targets last year. I mean, the guys who are throwing to him, what is a deep target when you're talking about those guys throwing to him? Luton? Are you joking? Like that, they didn't have a real quarterback. So now they have a legitimate run game with we just talked about that 1-2 punch. And I think if Lawrence, he knows that DJ Chark is his best receiver. I mean, Marvin Jones, he's a solid wide receiver 2, or maybe he was. I don't know if he still is. I love Visca, but he's more of a weapon at this point in his career than a full-blown true blue receiver. Chark is what he has when you talk about a stud at receiver. If Lawrence wants to look good, he's going to have to go to him more often. This guy could be top 10 targets very easily this year just because of the way that offense is. I do expect that they may be playing behind some. That really plays into Chark's hand, those deep balls. The more deep balls they can get, the better it is for Chark. I expect a lot of deep balls this year. So for me, Chark is going to wind up in the top 24 barring injury. In my mind, a total lock. Because again, it's like people forget what he did last year. Now that he's got an actual quarterback, this is going to be if you held on to your Chark shares from last year, it's going to be paying dividends. If you can acquire him right now for the cheap that he is, or again in the draft, he's going lower than he should be. This is a top 24 running back receiver. Excuse me, I got running back on my brain, but this is a top 24 receiver. We saw it in 2019, and we're going to get again year 4 guy, super big, super fast. It's that prototypical Randy Moss-like talents. That, like, again, the speed, and I'm not saying he's Randy Moss, but man, everything is put in place, especially with Lawrence. They're going to be behind. Chark is the real option that he has there right now.
Yeah, just to answer Trey real quick, really interesting question here. Carson Wentz or Daniel Jones with his reasons why he's high on these guys. And hey, they're both really good players. I think if you're going redraft this year, it's got to be Carson Wentz. He is just a better player at this point in his career. The real reason he struggled was poor offensive line in Philadelphia. He was running for his life, getting slaughtered. If he's back there able to sit there and just play quarterback with a better running game than he's ever had, better O-line in front of him there, and some veterans receivers as well as some young up-and-comers, I think Carson Wentz is primed for a really, really good season. Although I don't feel like Daniel Jones is really that far behind. But if we're talking dynasty, I might go Daniel Jones over Wentz just for the longevity play there and with all those weapons around him. But redraft right now, Carson Wentz for me.
I'm going to have to, for both formats, I'm going to go Danny Dimes because of his rushing floor. Fantasy football, got to get that rushing floor in here. Carson Wentz, I don't believe behind that offensive line with JTT, with the weapons, he's going to have to move and shake and boogie. This year, I'm already going to call it. Daniel Jones is going to have a great run, but this time he's going to make it into the end zone. So you want him as your quarterback when he has that 85-yard rushing touchdown, boy. I'm going to go Daniel Jones in all formats. I've actually got Daniel Jones as my quarterback 14, Carson Wentz as my quarterback 17. So go Danny Dimes for me.
I mean, personally, I think everyone here knows I'm a Wentz fan, but just looking at it strictly from value, I think you're going to be able to get Wentz later, especially in a dynasty. And looking at a dynasty format, I think that the culture also actually set up very well for that. They have a lot of cap space going forward. He's on contract for a few years, and it's a very young team. So, the majority of players around him are able to develop with him over the next 1 or 2 years, add another receiver or two in free agency or the draft, a tight end. And eventually, I believe the right tackle is going to be the oldest offensive lineman. I think he's only about 30, 31 years old.
That's not old at all.
Brandon Smith, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a very young squad, and they have the money and picks and value to build around him.
Yeah, realistically, this is a great position to be in, choosing between these two guys. I have both of them a lot. Like, if you look at most of my teams, I have at least one of these guys, and in many, I have both of them. I'm just going to lean Daniel Jones because of what Saquon is and because I like Kenny Golladay better than anything in Indy right now. I also think that Indy's defense, as good as I think the Giants' defense is, Indy's defense is a little bit better, and Indy's not going to be playing from behind, not interdivisionally, but like on the other games. Indy can control the ball in a better way. Saquon is I like Saquon better than JTT, but Saquon is so good catcher, and he's so everything. No, yeah, for sure, Saquon the best. But for me, I'm going to lean Daniel Jones because I have these Giants glasses on right now. But these two quarterbacks, I'm with you. There have been drafts that I've taken Wentz higher than Jones just to diversify my shares because, to me, they're very close.
I agree. So get back to Ryan's wide receiver, DJ Chark. This is a guy, I really like him. He kind of caught that touchdown on that play that Nick Foles got knocked out for the rest of the year. Touchdown in the back of the end zone to start that year for the Jags, and really didn't look back last season, and just turned into a really good player, really solid fantasy guy. Nothing out of the ordinary, but just really a nice, consistent player that looked like he was going to be very promising in the future. And I don't think that was necessarily not the case last year. He did miss some games. He wasn't healthy when he did play, and like you guys alluded to, the quarterback play was pathetic. But this is a guy that got almost 8 targets per game. Now, if you're getting 8 targets a game from Trevor Lawrence, you're going to be racking up some stats. And that's what fantasy's about, man. So I'm all in on DJ Chark. I'm snagging him anywhere I can get him. He's kind of slept on a little bit because, he feels like that kind of off-brand guy because he was a Jags receiver that kind of broke out against expectations and then regressed last year. But I do think this guy's the real deal at the wide receiver position. I think he'll be the number 1 guy in Jacksonville for quite some time with Trevor Lawrence. If you own him in Dynasty, don't let him go.
Yeah, I remember, 3 seasons ago, Mike Clay on Sunday morning was like, pick up DJ Chark. He's going to have a big game. I picked him up. He had 100 yards and a touchdown. The next game he had 2 touchdowns. I was like, oh, my Lord, this is great. DJ Chark. Remember who his teammate was? DK Metcalf at Ole Miss, SEC guys. They know how to play ball. There's another guy on this team that I really like too. I don't talk about him too much, but I've been snagging him up in drafts left and right. It's Colin Johnson Jr., the big 6'6" kid out of the University of Texas. He's got the prototypical build that you want, and he's young. So I'm taking a flyer on him. But DJ Chark, man, yeah, he's in a class all of his alone, like on this team. He's a clear-cut wide receiver 1. I don't know why he's fallen so far and why people aren't snagging him up, but like we like to go running backs really heavy at the beginning. DJ Chark is a great wide receiver 1 to have.
Chark played at LSU also, but he had Odell, I think, was there at the time, and Jarvis. Yeah, he had some talent there when he was there for sure. LSU kicked out some receivers.
So really quick, just looking at this depth chart for wide receivers, can we talk about the fact that Laviska Shenault, 6'1", Marvin Jones Jr., 6'2", DJ Chark, 6'4", Colin Johnson, 6'6", you said, right?
Big old boy.
Those are some big receivers.
Dude, and Viz is like he's one of the shorter ones, but dude's like like the Hulk. Like it's crazy.
Long arms.
Yeah, he's yoked up. I like Viz.
Yeah. I just noticed that. I was looking at this roster. I was like, these are all big guys, and they're not slow either. Like we said, running in the 4.3s, right? I mean, This is a guy that tracks the deep ball so well. Everyone, obviously, we're going back here, looking at the last couple of years. Gardner Minshew was this quarterback that he succeeded with the most, right? And the success he had was on deep balls. A lot of people's questions were on Minshew, and he doesn't have arm strength, but he was able to place the ball up in the air and place it to the point where Chark is able to trace it coming into him and put it right over his shoulder. And his ability to make those catches right in the end zone, getting the toes down, is incredible. There's not many receivers I see doing that as consistently as he does. So for that reason, I'm a big fan of him. Trevor Lawrence does like to put a ball up, down deep. So I think that could be a great combination. And you brought up DK Metcalf. They're basically they're both 6'4". Chark is basically just a slim down version. Yeah, he's not going to shove guys off, but like he is a very similar speed, very similar size, just not as bulky. So I do like him. I think the value's there because you can get him relatively inexpensive. And I mean, the dude gets 13.8 yards per reception, 13.3 last year, 12.4 his rookie year. You got to love those numbers.
Gotta love them.
Yeah, so my guy at wide receiver is Hollywood Brown up there in Baltimore. I know you hate Lamar Jackson, Tom, but we kind of did a deep dive into quarterbacks a while back. It got me kind of thinking about that offense and how Lamar Jackson had a similar number of attempts through the air and really just regressed from that 36 to 26 touchdown range. But really the offensive, personnel was really lacking as far as pass catchers go. So Hollywood Brown, to me, he's a speed guy. He had just a single 100-yard game last season and only 2 touchdowns through 11 weeks. He was wide receiver 54 over that span, but he finished the year scoring 6 touchdowns over his last 6 games. It was wide receiver 13 over that final stretch with no real help, like I mentioned before. So I see the additions of Rashad Bateman, Tylan Wallace as help for Hollywood rather than competition to his targets, his production, that kind of thing. But Bateman, he has a totally different game, and Tylan Wallace isn't Hollywood Brown. So I do think those additions are good for Lamar, who could return to his MVP form with the added weapons. I expect Hollywood to benefit, and I think he's in for a similar year to like Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore last year, coming right in around that wide receiver 24 mark, even with more upside potentially than that low-end wide receiver 2. But I love the deep threat wide receivers. Hollywood's a good one. He's primed for that year 3 breakout, and when you're drafting this guy in the range like Corey Davis, Robbie Anderson area, he's a clear-cut number 1 in Baltimore. He's a tremendous upside pick for everybody that's kind of lulled to sleep by a slow start to his year last season.
Yeah, I really like Hollywood Brown a lot. I mean, the additions to Bateman and Taylor Wallace to the Baltimore Ravens, maybe they sign Dez back as well. I don't know. I think that's going to be great for Hollywood because he's going to be able to streak down the field, and we're going to see Jackson be able to put on that Jackson 5 again, wear the glasses, wear the chain, roll it out there, be real swaggy. So I really like Hollywood Brown too, Billy. I mean, he's my wide receiver 1 in a lot of leagues. So let's go Hollywood.
Yeah, if you go as running back heavy as we all tend to do, you end up with a lot of Hollywood Brown, it seems like, which is fine by me, man. I like this guy.
You know what would really benefit him?
A quarterback?
They already have one there, though.
McSorley?
Sorely. He throws it on the dime, man. All right. So, I don't dislike Marquise Brown, right? I do think he's a good receiver. Obviously has a lot of speed and is a great deep threat. My only concern here, well, 2 concerns. Number 1 is, of course, what's the actual passing volume going to look like for this team? Lamar Jackson does not throw the ball a lot, and when he does, he's again not bad at throwing the ball. It's just not great. He's not lighting the world on fire with it. It's his legs that do the work. So with whatever that volume is, though, you do have mouths to feed here. Obviously, you have Nick Boyle, who got Nick Boyle and Mark Andrews at tight end. The tight end is where it seemed like the majority of their touches went last year. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards out of the backfield. And then at receiver alone, you have Marquise Brown. Not that I think he's going to have a big impact, but Sammy Watkins is technically there. Miles Boykin, Devin Duvernay, Tylan Wallace, James Prochet, Rashad Bateman. It is a lot of mouths to feed, and if the volume itself for the entire team is limited, I don't know what that says for Marquise Brown as being a mostly deep threat, right? I don't know if Lamar's really going to be throwing bombs enough for it to be justifying him as being my wide receiver 1. That's my biggest concern.
All I need is 1 a game. Like, everything makes sense to me here. This team runs so well. If Brown just needs one big catch a game, he's not going to be the PPR machine that some of these high guys are. He's not going to have a high catch rate. It doesn't matter. I'll take a 70-yard TD. Boom. You got me, dude. I don't understand why he wasn't getting at least one a game. With what this offense is capable of on the ground, I really do. I've made some trades for Marquise Brown just because I'm like, look, I know in PPR you're going to suffer a bit on catches, but this dude is going to have those big plays. He needs just to hit just one a game. And I think that as much as I agree with you, Tom, I don't like Lamar, he should still be improving. He's got to recognize this kind of stuff, that Marquise Brown will be open for a bomb a couple times a game, especially with the play action and what they can do on the ground. It just makes sense to me. Like, my spidey senses are tingling, saying this guy is a big play waiting to happen. I don't know why a game. I mean, he had 8 touchdowns last year on 58 catches. He can get – that was just on 100 targets. Say he gets 100 targets, has 65 catches, 10 touchdowns, 900 yards. The thing is, like, he's a guy I really want in best ball because, again, what if he gets 2 of those big catches? I don't care about the catches if he's getting yards like that.
And he is the guy that when you look at his stat line and he has like that 3 for 36, you saw Lamar Jackson overthrow him 3 times that were tutties had that they connected on those throws. He was doing fine and playing good football. They were just misconnecting a lot early in the year in Baltimore, so no real concern for me. And you know, one thing that's kind of coming back, and some of my home leagues do it, if you're in a league that gives a bonus for 40-yard touchdowns, Marquise Brown is a guy you definitely want to target because that's where he does most of his work. He gets loose, he gets behind everybody, and it's 6.
He's Deshaun Jackson back in 2009, 2010.
Absolutely.
In his early days with the Eagles, it's a boomer bust.
It's
Will
one
Fuller.
78 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Every Sunday night football.
Will Fuller-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar type of player. It's the big question of it's going to be 15 points or nothing. That's what it is.
15 points on one catch. Like,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm cool with it too. I think the upside's there. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for me, it's as a wide receiver 1 on my team, I'd struggle to do it. As a 2 or 3, I'm all in on that type of player personally. But
not if I got Saquon, Chubb, and somebody like
Zeke in the third, we've been.
Something like that, dude. I'm about that. I'll take Marquise as my wide receiver 1 all day if I got those running backs. Yeah.
Oh, I was muted. What I was going to say was, ain't no one getting Zeke around here in the 3rd round if I'm in the draft with you. All right, that's not going to happen.
But I did do it with Derrick Henry. And
that's fair. That's fair.
I'm telling you, it's possible. I'm just not taking a receiver if there's those running backs on the board. I'm not doing it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you'll end up with guys like Odell Beckham Jr., man. Product of LSU, like we mentioned, and Billy's guy, Baker Mayfield, number 1 wide receiver. Beckham obviously was injured last year, and the season prior to that, he didn't really come to form in one of the most run-heaviest offenses who run the fewest amount of plays per game with Kevin Stefanski. He has the lowest wide receiver target share amongst wide receivers, but between him and Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, there's not a lot of mouths to feed per se. So Odell Beckham should get the lion's share again. When Odell Beckham has gotten the lion's share and had 5 touches per game, he's gone over 1,000 yards in those seasons. So he's done that all but 3 times in his career. A big factor that Billy was talking about, or maybe it was Billy, maybe it was Tom around. One of you guys touched on Baker's ascension in the passing game. When Baker has targeted Odell, he is at a 91.1. When he targets other receivers or backs or tight ends, he's at a 69.8. Odell Beckham helps Baker make these throws because his catch radius is so good. Man, there's not too much more I can say except I've got Odell Beckham. His ECR is at 28. I have him as my wide receiver 16. I've got him projected at 83 catches for just over 1,000 yards, giving him over 233 points, putting him right there at my wide receiver 16. Man, I'm really liking me some Odell this year.
So you know that rumor that there was going around about him last year about what he likes to have girls do to him?
Uh
That's what he is.
huh.
Shit. So when I look at Odell Beckham, right, I look at, okay, his first 3 years, incredible. 100 plus, 90 plus receptions a year, 1,300 plus yards, 85 to 108 yards per game, depending on which year you're looking at, and 10 plus touchdowns every year. That's incredible. Since then, his 4th year in the league on, his yards per game have gone to 75.5, 87.7, 64.7, 45.6. His catch percentage has also declined steadily, pretty much since his rookie season. His touchdowns since that 3rd year in the league, he's never broken 6 touchdowns a year. The best benefit he has is in 2018, 2019, he still had 1,000-yard seasons, but it's just nothing compared to what he used to be. And I get that this is, to look at it as a value pick, but I just see a steady decline on him since his rookie season. And it's tough to, really you're betting on a bounce back. And I get that. It's tough to bet on that when you've seen such a steady decline in almost every measurable category when you look at the stats.
Yeah.
And they're good receivers on that team.
I agree with you, Pinto. I'm looking at OBJ with some value this year. I just think Baker's better. The problem is there's always a guy like Joshua Cho who's like, OBJ's back, and they take him too early. And I never wind up getting him because I can't reach for him. But I understand that the talent there is undeniable. Something is off, or something has been off. Will it be right? I mean, I know that if your competitor like OBJ is, you can't like what's been happening recently. So I'm hopeful that he's putting in the work and he's doing what he needs to do to get back on track, because he's only going to be 29. Like, that's not that old. When I look at what his potential is wide receiver 1. Like, we've seen what that looks like. But yeah, I know, Josh. But what I'm saying is there's always that guy in the draft room. There's always that guy that takes him where I'm like, all right, in the next round or 2, I'll snag OBJ. And then he goes before I can get him, because somebody else is always like, God, I can't keep passing on this guy, because we know what he can be. And I'm just hopeful that what he can be and what he is will get back in line with each other. Like, I want him. I just don't get enough of him because, again, there's always at least one guy that gets him too early. Or not too early, but earlier than when I'm about to get him.
Yeah, I mean, Odell Beckham is he's an incredible talent. I mean, at his peak, he like you said, Ryan, wide receiver 1. He's a top-notch NFL talent, maybe ever, up there right along some of the best. I mean, like you said, Tom, his stats to start a career, that's some guys' best seasons they had over a very long, very productive career. They don't have a single year with those kind of numbers across the board. So the talent's there. That first year in Cleveland with Baker, he did have 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is a little under what we would hope out of a guy of this caliber. However, Baker was a rookie, and although he played really good football as a rookie, he was still a rookie. That year 2 was kind of a disaster in Cleveland altogether, and we really haven't seen Beckham be healthy since. So I like him getting back to this offense. And the biggest thing that kind of gets me excited about the Cleveland Browns is 2 guys with polarizing personalities, 2 guys that are always in the news, media, and getting kind of bashed on, and that attention that becomes negative because it's just so much that they just nitpick the guys. Baker and Odell Beckham. I don't know if you guys have seen much out of them, but I haven't seen anything out of either one of these guys in quite some time, and that tells me they're getting ready to play football, nothing else.
All right, that takes us to, I believe, our last receiver, right, guys? In Jerry Jeudy. So obviously Denver we talked about already, so somebody we've already touched on. The biggest thing to me watching this guy's film, personally, I think he's the best route running receiver from last year's draft class, which was a very good receiver class. So taking a look at his stats, though, again, with the receiving core around him being pretty decimated, he was dealing with some nagging injuries a couple games. 52 receptions, 856 yards, averaging 16.5 yards a reception, which is pretty impressive. So I think that this could be a big season for him to step up again with Cortland Sutton coming out to be the number one receiver opposite him. Takes a little bit of the pressure off. Again, they have a couple guys behind him that are pretty solid. And again, I think quarterback play is going to step up a lot in Denver this year. We saw a big drop off in that last year. Again, offense struggled as a whole. I think we're going to see them be the powerhouse that we kind of anticipated last year. And Jerry Jeudy is going to be a very big part of that.
Yeah, I think that Sutton coming back is going to do wonders for him. He should have had him last year. I'm all about Jeudy. I think this Denver, I think Pinto said earlier, did we all just become Denver fans all of a sudden? I do like Jeudy. I like this offense. I will take some Jeudy. The problem is in Dynasty, he's still valued so high, but in redraft, I think there's going to be tons of value. See you later, Scott. There's going to be tons of value in redraft.
Yeah, that yards per catch is this monster. I mean, 52 catches, that's nothing. I mean, the guy's getting less than 4 catches per game, almost has 1,000 yards, and he might be the fastest guy in the field at all times. And coming out of Alabama, a lot of scouts regarded him as one of the best route runners they've seen coming out of college football in ever, overall. So he did not disappoint in that department. If you watch Jerry Jeudy, he puts guys on skates a lot. The question for me is quarterback play. Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, we hope he's the guy there for Judy's sake, getting downfield. That's just not kind of what Bridgewater does well. But if Aaron Rodgers somehow ends up in Denver like we've been talking about, Jerry Jeudy is going to be the hottest commodity there is in fantasy football for quite some time, just because the skill set that he brings, that's just a toy for Aaron Rodgers. He hasn't had a guy quite like that.
Absolutely not. I mean, Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama, man, last year. I mean, you say scouts talk about being the best route runner. Tom says that every time he talks about Jerry Jeudy, the best route runner in the league. I couldn't believe I heard that so much last year when I was talking about CeeDee Lamb was my 1A to Jerry Judy's 1B. Every time, God dog. But Jerry Jeudy, man, with Cortland Sutton back, with the Javonte Williams too, the elevated play of Drew Lock, like we mentioned earlier, I'm like, this is a smash play all day for me. It's like, how sleepers ADP's always all drunk and stuff like this. Jerry Jeudy for me seems like he's just kind of shuffled in the mix and people forget about him. So I don't have enough shares of Jerry Jeudy just because like where there's running backs there, I really like that I'm silly. Like I like my 5th running back better than your 3rd running back or your 2nd running back. So I'm just, y'all know how I play. So
we know how you play, Chris.
Yeah, all the tight ends and all the running backs. That's how Chris plays.
That's it, baby. Come on.
In every league I'm in, Chris has the most running backs in every league I'm in with him. I'm always looking to trade with him for running backs.
Yeah, Chris through round 7, Kittle, Kelsey, 5 running backs, including Zeke.
We need to set roster limits for our leagues with him so you can only have so many running backs.
Have you ever tried to negotiate a trade with this guy? He blocks your routing number. It's amazing.
He asked for my social last time we tried to negotiate.
Man.
Look, when we talk about trades, guys, that's between us and the DMs. Let's not bring that to light, okay? We're talking about tight ends now, all right? We're talking about the guys that are going to make a difference on your fantasy football team. Tight ends are just so terrible right now. Any one of these guys can be tight end 1 given the opportunity, right? We're going to start off with Tom's guy.
Hey, this is a guy I talked about a bit coming up into the draft. I still think he's a great option. I think this is probably one of the better landing spots for him too. So Tommy Tremble coming out of Notre Dame, not the best route running tight end in the world. He's not going to get a ton of separation, but he's very athletic and has a lot to work with. The biggest factor for him is going to be his blocking ability. He's a very, very, very good blocker. We saw limited usage at Notre Dame, just kind of playing in a rotation there. But in Carolina, you looking at the competition, a guy I like, Ian Thomas, I think he has potential, but I think Tremble is going to very early on outplay him due to that blocking ability. He's going to be on the field more. And then beyond that, it's, I believe, Steven Sullivan, Dan Arnold, Colin Thompson, nobody exciting down there. So just based on the snaps he should get alone in the blocking game, he will be out there to catch balls. and you know that everybody's going to be focused on CMC, on DJ Moore, on Ronnie Anderson, all the other weapons on this offense, that Sam Darnold, the new quarterback down there, who's not going to be seeing ghosts anymore, he's just going to see the ghosts of freaking Adam Gase in his dreams when he sleeps well at night, knowing he's not on the Jets anymore. So this is going to be one of Sammy's favorite targets down there. And by the way, if you're in a rookie redraft, or excuse me, a rookie draft, I'm getting him like 4th round, and I think he has solid tight end 2, low end tight end 1 value. Possibly. It's a little bit of a gamble, but a good late pickup.
Look, I love blocking tight ends. I always go Gronk. Like, Gronk could be on the field every play in his prime. Tremple's going to hit the field because of his blocking ability. We saw his athleticism. Tom, you said it perfectly. We going to go straight to Knox, or do y'all want to talk about Tremble as well?
Go ahead on Knox, man. All
right, let's rock it with Knox. Dawson Knox, a guy I was high on last year, but this is his 3rd year. I love tight ends in year 3. Health has been an issue, but the athleticism there is off the charts. Consistency and health, those have been the 2 issues. Year 3 should address that consistency stuff. We saw what Allen did, took a big step. He had the 2nd best target separation among tight ends in the NFL last year. His natural athleticism translates. He just needs to better learn the system, which he has been, and better learn playing tight end. He played quarterback in high school and slowly began the transition to tight end in college. So he's still legitimately learning. I think the breakout was late. I was projecting it last year, but year 3 is an awesome year for tight ends, and I'm back on the Knox train, especially with how I feel about Josh Allen and all the weapons in that offense, and the fact that, again, this is one of the most athletic tight ends in the league.
Yeah, I really like Dawson Knox as well. He's this exciting player. A young, really athletic guy, kind of learning the position in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Saw him make some really fun plays towards the end of last year. But my guy at tight end is Tom's Eagles, Dallas Goedert. I just love this guy. Small school guy, close to home for me. I like to root for these guys. However, Dallas Goedert, he was a little banged up last year. Only played in 11 games in 2020, but he was the 2nd leading receiver on the Eagles and was still tight end 18. He was on pace for 67 receptions, 762 yards, and 4 touchdowns. To put that in perspective, T.J. Hawkinson was tight end 5, and he posted 67 catches, 723 yards, and 6 touchdowns on 101 targets. Zach Ertz had 72 targets last season, also playing 11 games, but there's a lot of assumptions that he isn't with Philly in 2021, and that would create a target share for Goddard that only Darren Waller and Travis Kelce could compete with. So I'm all in on the Eagles passing game, and Goddard is coming into a prime scenario. He's a fantastic dynasty asset as well at only age 26. With this offense really starting to come together for the Eagles, I'm really excited about Dallas Goedert and where I'm getting him in drafts, both dynasty and redraft.
Yeah, where you're able to get this guy at, it's pretty good, pretty great value, especially with all the rumors coming out that that Zach Ertz won't be an Eagle this season. My guy is a guy that I've been touting for a while. Is Cole Kmet, man. Like Ryan mentioned, the 3rd year mark. This will be his 2nd year, 6'6" out of Notre Dame. Now he's a Chicago Bear, right? The dude is a great blocker. He learned from Jimmy Graham. Matt Nagy loves to call plays to the tight end. The guy is pretty good at what he does as well. At 1.75 yards per target separation from him to the defender, he ranks number 9 in the league as a pass catcher. Not just a tight end, but as a pass catcher. His true catch rate is a 93.3%, which ranks 4th in efficiency amongst all pass catchers in the league. But here's the kicker, which Ryan and Billy should like. He plays almost 31% of the time in the slot. That's phenomenal. The quarterback, when targeting whatever quarterback is targeting Cole Kmet, has a 97.9 QBR rating. Phenomenal. Last year, the tight end in Chicago was targeted over 120 times. I feel if Cole Kmet gets 85 targets, he catches 71 of those balls for around 650 yards. And let's go ahead and say he gets the 9 touchdowns that needs to make him the tight end 5 for Pinto. Even though ECR has him around 18, this guy is like the guy that I want because of the running backs that I'm taking and the opportunity that he will get with Justin Fields on the field because of how much we know that quarterbacks like to target the running backs and tight ends really close to the line. Cole Kmet is going to be Justin Fields' second best friend to David Montgomery. So Cole Kmet, my tight end 5.
Really touted guy coming out of Notre Dame too. I mean, Cole Kmet just kind of overshadowed by Jimmy Graham having a little bit of a resurgence. Otherwise, this guy's probably a lot higher on a lot of lists now.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Now we're going to go some little wild card action, right, to close it up, guys. The wild card round, we could pick any position that we want, and it's funny because we all still kind of picked what we went to, right? Running backs. I went with Javonte Williams, rookie, the Tar Heel, now Denver Bronco, like we mentioned with Melvin Gordon. There's going to be a lot of vacated targets, a lot of vacated snaps as well without Phillip Lindsay there. We know what Javonte can do. Obviously, he's a bull. I do think, like we said earlier, Melvin Gordon gets the goal line work earlier on. I think Javonte might have a run towards the end of the season, but if they do make the playoff push, I think Melvin Gordon still takes that work. But that being said, I think Javonte can still have close to 200 total touches, with the 200 total touches somewhere around 900 to 1,100 total yards, putting him somewhere around 190 fantasy points, which makes him my, as of right now, running back 27, where ECR has him at 45. So running back 27, where you're getting this cat, I absolutely love it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty big on Williams. Like we've discussed about him, he knows how to share the ball in a backfield. Coming out of UNC, obviously Michael Carter down there, they split time, and both were still ultra productive. So big fan of Williams going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Javonte is we talked about him enough in the Melvin Gordon stuff. I like both of these backs in this situation.
Yeah, like you said, Chris, 150 touches left by Phillip Lindsay. With the quarterback situation, them drafting a running back as high as they did, I see no reason why these guys both don't eat. I really like Javonte Williams. I think it could be a similar situation like Cam Akers, or maybe at the beginning of the year, or J.K. Dobbins might be a more appropriate comparison, but maybe at the beginning of the year leaves a little bit to be desired as Melvin Gordon kind of has a stranglehold on the job, but as the year goes on, they're going to want to play the kid that they drafted. Obviously, they're pretty excited about him just based on where they went to get him. So I like Javonte a lot, especially moving forward, dynasty-wise. The first-round pick, no question.
Yeah, I was the odd one out here for the wild cards. I went wide receiver. Wanted to change it up a bit here. A guy that I think a lot of people didn't look at last year as a real threat, Michael Pittman Jr. for the Colts. I don't know what to think of him, right? He's a very good player. Obviously missed some time last year with injuries, but it's not like this is an overly deep wide receiver room. Bringing in Carson Wentz here, you're talking about T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman Jr., Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal. That's really about it. And really, Paris Campbell, we haven't seen much out of him. I don't see a lot of pros for him. Zach Pascal last year, not a bad fantasy option as a kind of late in the season flex guy once injuries started to build up. And T.Y. Hilton obviously is kind of a shell of himself. So I think of all the guys on this team that are going to be receiving the ball, Pittman is the one that's due for a breakout, has the most ability, and I think he and Wentz are really going to be a good connection for the next few years to come.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Pittman. He's the wide receiver 1 for Indy. I like Wentz. I love Taylor. I love the offensive line. I love the defense. Pittman, to me, is just going to have a huge breakout this year.
Yeah, I mean, one guy that Carson Wentz is going to love is going to be Michael Pittman at 6'4", 225. This is a monster guy, monster target. Has legitimate speed. He can kind of do everything, but he did have a couple of splash games in the middle of the season that got us really into him. However, it was kind of a sputter to the end of the season. But I am excited about the prospect that is Michael Pittman in that role with Carson Wentz, who will throw it downfield. I think we could see a start to a really bright young career here as Michael Pittman.
Yes, muted.
2 times tonight. So I think Michael Pittman's just a guy that we talked about last season and just kind of going through the season. For me, at least, obviously he's got the pedigree, right? His dad played in the NFL, a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He played at USC. So You watch his progression at USC. He's just a guy that I mentioned, just trust the process. Every year at USC, he played a little bit more. He got a little bit better. He saw more of the field, and his numbers progressed until that senior year where he really blew up. And I have no doubts that that's how it'll go for him in the NFL as well. This year, his sophomore year, he's going to take that year to leap. And with Wentz, man, I mean, the dude is going to be the number one wide receiver on this team. T.Y. Hilton will have his number one wide receiver games when he plays the Houston Texans, and that's about it. So Michael Pittman Jr. for president for me.
Hey, he has a quarterback that can throw it more than 3 yards downfield.
That noodle arm boy.
Very
It's helpful. All right, so in the same vein, I went rookie running back Trey Sermon. I mean, we all saw his flashes last year in the title game. He's big, he's strong. He clocked in Pro Football Focus's 3rd highest grading season for OSU running back since 2014. Twice he was usurped by Zeke, obviously. San Francisco has no running backs that I really get excited about other than Sermon. A healthy Mostert could eat into his touches slightly, but at his floor, he's their RB2 in San Francisco. If he gets over half the touches, he's going to be in the top 24. I think he's going to get over half the touches. This offense, Shanahan, Billy, you've mentioned this in the chat together. Shanahan makes great running backs. Sermon can capitalize on that zone scheme. His downhill run style is going to translate. Look at the size on this guy. He should not be the running back 52 for the ECR for Fantasy Pros. That's outrageous. He's not going at running back 52 in any draft we're in. I know that for a fact. He likely moves up as the season progresses. He's going to take that that job over. You got to snag him before his value skyrockets. This guy could be going as a top 24 RB. If he wins that job in camp and your draft is late, you will not be getting him late. He's going to be an early back. He's, in my opinion, also potentially, I'm not doing this, but makes a lot of sense that if you have him in Dyna and that value bumps up into where he's getting taken in the first 3 rounds, you move him, because the only concern I have for him in Dynasty is his injury concern. That is a real legitimate concern. We saw that in college. But, man, for redraft, I'm about this life. I have Trey Sermon on as many teams as I can get him on.
Yeah, Trey Sermon is my RB2 coming out this year. I love the situation. I love this guy. Like we've talked about the Kyle Shanahan situation, this dude just churns them out at the running back position. I'm going to start calling and keep calling Raheem Mostert. Just say no. Get yourself as many shares of Trey Sermon as you can. I'm going to tell you about some guys that Kyle Shanahan has had from the running back position going all the way back. You guys remember Steve Slayton, big-time guy out of West Virginia, 1,282 yards, 9 touchdowns rushing. Ryan Terrain had 740 yards and 4 touchdowns, taking over for Clinton Portis back in the day in an 11-game absence for him before injuries kind of derailed him, having a little bit of a breakout in Washington. Alfred Morris, 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns as a rookie, and also saw RG3 win Rookie of the Year for all you Trey Lance believers. Morris followed that up with 1,275 yards and 7 touchdowns on 60 fewer carries. In 2014, Kyle Shanahan with the Browns, Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West. Both guys logged 600 yards and combined for 12 touchdowns. Devontae Freeman, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons and 11 touchdowns. Carlos Hyde, Matt Breida, and Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. have all logged 700-yard seasons under this guy. They drafted him in the 3rd round. They're going to play him. There's no reason to think that he can't do what some of the top-end guys that I just named did. He's a lot better talent than most of the guys that I just named for you guys. I love this spot. I love the landing spot. They'll get the quarterback situation figured out sooner than later. I think Trey Lance and Trey Sermon, the 2 Treys in the Bay, man, I think it's going to be a big deal sooner than later.
2 Treys in the Bay.
2 Treys in the Bay, baby. Well, y'all know my affinity for Trey Sermon, OU guy, transferred to the Ohio State. Golly, man. I've got a water bet with the guys from the fantasy coaches on Trey Sermon end of season versus Stevenson. Obviously, I went Sermon.
I went Stevenson?
Yeah.
What? I've joined that bet all day.
We were going to take it money, but the guy said that he had a freezing cold lake in his backyard. And I was like, well, there's Lake Bryan here in College Station. I'll go jump in the lake if Stevenson outscores Sermon. He goes, all right, let's do it. All right. That's all I got on Trey Sermon. Let's go.
Yeah. Not much else to say that you guys haven't hit on. I mean, he's a monster of a back, obviously. Ryan did point out the injury concerns. That is my largest concern from a dynasty perspective, and I am big on If a player like that, if you do have him, the value goes up significantly. At least consider trading him, field some offers, and see what the
Trade him to me. I'm buying. Ryan, you already know. I'm hitting everybody up who drafted Trey Sermon ahead of me, and I'm making sure I bring him home.
Yeah, I'm not saying just give him away, by the way. I'm saying just see what's out there. If somebody wants to offer you the house, by all means, take it.
So you're saying that if your running backs are Jonathan Taylor touchdown, Ezekiel Elliott, CEH, Michael Carter, Trey Sermon, and Alexander Massen, you're sitting pretty.
You're in good shape.
All right. You hear that, Joshua Cho? There you go.
Other than the fact you have Jake Luton as your quarterback.
Justin Fields, Ryan Tannehill, Jared Goff, Tom Brady.
Woo! That's feeling good right
I
there.
like that pretty well, too, yeah.
I still got Bobby Trees and Keenan Allen, too.
Keenan Allen.
Gesicki, first
Oh, boy.
round.
Keenan Allen has to be the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL, man.
I'm loving that sticky Gesicki, too.
So my guy running back, as much as I love Trey Sermon, this is a guy that I really thought about for the wild card. Just a guy that has an awesome opportunity that maybe we're overlooking a little bit. A.J. Dillon for the Packers. No way is this a negative on Aaron Jones. We love Aaron Jones. Free Aaron Jones, man. I love me some Aaron Jones, but we all saw what A.J. Dillon was in that beatdown the Titans got up in Green Bay in the snow at the end of last year. He made us understand the Packers situation had they let Aaron Jones leave in free agency. And that's saying a lot, to let that guy go and kind of see why they would do that. They did allow Jamal Williams to leave in free agency, however, and he left 150 touches on the table. Dillon already had 48 touches as a rookie, albeit 22 in that game against Tennessee, but it's safe to assume he would receive most, if not all, of those vacated touches as the number 2 running back in Green Bay. Aaron Jones already had 248 touches himself, and they can only give him so many more touches, and mostly he'll probably absorb a lot of the passing game work that Williams left on the table. So if Dillon could maintain that 5.2 yards per carry that he's had last year and get 150 carries, that's almost 800 yards rushing. That's CEH, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson territory. We're talking running back 15 to 18 range for a guy that's ranked outside of the top 35 at his position. He's already viewed as a solid asset in Dynasty, but I think this year he'll also be a valuable running back in redraft. Tremendous upside, and you'll be upset if he's not on your roster when he breaks out. And if Aaron Jones were to go down, this guy is Saquon. He's a whole nother breed, just one of those level guys. I think he would take that job and run with it. He'd be very happy that you decided to take a flyer on him when that running back group kind of starts to thin out.
I'm not going to be upset. Free Aaron Jones. The juice goes to the Texas boys. Go UTEP Miners. Let the man eat. Give the man 200, 350 total touches. I don't care. He can handle it all because he's Aaron Jones. Bring in, it don't matter. Bring in Sam Darnold. Bring in Mark Sanchez. Bring in Tony Romo. It don't matter. Minshew. Aaron Jones is the man. A.J. Dillon, I'm sorry. You're a great athlete. You rock the short shorts. The huge yards per carry is great. You're a great football player. Get away from my man's Aaron Jones. Free him.
I'm not going to lie. I have a few leagues that I had Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in at the end of last year, and I was hoping so badly that Aaron Jones would go somewhere else, and
Buffalo.
I would have 2 starting running backs. A.J. Dillon, well, he's not the kind of every – he doesn't have all the tools that Aaron Jones does, right? He's not a great receiving back. He went 2 for 2 last year, two targets, 2 receptions. But obviously not his forte. What his forte is getting about 5.3 yards per carry and running through somebody's chest. If you're in front of him, it doesn't matter who you are, he will run you over. I mean, we talk about Saquads. It's Saquads 2.0. He has tree trunks for thighs. So big fan of A.J. Dillon. Any opportunity he gets, he's going to make use of it.
Yeah, for me, I think that his yards per carry are going to go down, and it's going to be a good thing because he's going to be running the ball from the 3. Like, in reality, I legitimately think he might not have the volume but he is, when they get in those short yardage situations, especially down on the goal line, I like seeing Dillon and Jones out there. You could run Dillon as the lead blocker, or you could just pound him in. I think he's going to be a bit touchdown dependent this year because of Jones's versatility, but I don't think that's going to be a problem because, again, that yard per carry thing, it's going to go down simply because there's not going to be as much field for him to run. The end zone yards don't count when he gets in. So I could see him having one of those Jerome Bettis type years where he has like 10 touchdowns, but maybe like 500 yards rushing. Like that could legitimately be what you're looking at here, is a guy that's going to feed you some touchdowns, that he's going to be more valuable than where he's getting taken right now.
Absolutely. Guys, we hit that 100-minute mark. That was our My Guys episode. Next week, guys, we start with our rankings, right? So quarterback rankings will be the first ones in the series, the quarterback conundrum. Meet us next week, the same time, same place, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on the Rumboyz Network. I'm your host at Aggie Kappa Sig. For my guys, at FFR Tom, at Real Ryan Hicks, at BWitt24. Guys, make sure you sign up for the St. Jude Bowl. We'll have that stuff going out. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Subscribe as well to the Rumboyz Network on their YouTube. That's where you can find our newest video content. We will have more stuff coming out towards the season. A lot of things coming out. Guys, it's been a good one, a great one. We'll see you next week.